On? Yep, looks like it. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the hopefully more successful than the last one, Starknet Core Dev meeting. Okay, we'll start with a quick agenda and then we can move on. I want to briefly discuss the pre-release notes for 0.13.2 because this is the more immediate concern. Integration is about 1-2 weeks away. Okay, we'll start with a quick agenda and then we can my bad, the live stream was on. And after that, we have Alex to discuss standardizing WebSockets. Pathfinder and Juno both at the moment in a not compatible way support WebSockets, and basically it's about time we figure out the subscribe methods. Maybe before we go into subscription, we'll make a quick round of sync between the teams and see if you want to bring something up P2P wise. Okay, so I'll start with 0.13.2. Publish the pre-release notes on the community forum. Not a lot of changes that are visible externally. So I'll just focus on things that are missed from the current version of the release notes, and I will add them. The first is about L1. So the data of the L1 format is slightly changing due to applicative recursion. The exact details of the new state if encoding will be published. It's not going to be radically different. I think the old value of the nonce is being added. Right now, we're only adding it if it was changed. I don't think it's something much heavier than that. The state update event, right now it's emitted every block because we have to call the state update function on every block. And as of 4.13.2, we'll basically skip a bunch of blocks. We'll prove and publish the associated blobs of a sequence of blocks, and the event will be emitted once per a sequence of blocks. I think at least on Papyrus and Pathfinder that you don't care about the event itself because there are view functions that give you the latest proven block hash and number. I'm not sure about Kazaa or Juno, but if you do care about the event, then we can discuss this. I don't think it's a radical change in any case. Okay, so that's the L1 stuff. There are also some feeder gateway changes that I missed. One is a new built-in. So we have actually two new built-ins that we're adding for arithmetic circuits, addmul and mulmod. Addmod and mulmod. And essentially, we're not expecting them to be very common. They're used for arithmetic circuits access in Cairo 1. But right now, execution resources reported by the gateway are reporting every single built-in use. So if we don't do anything, we'll also report these new built-ins, and full nodes will have to be ready to parse those as part of the transaction receipts that they're receiving. There is a question if we even want to do that, because if they are not added to the RPC, we may just want to lose them entirely. But I think the simplest option now is to report them in the feeder and ignore them in the RPC, because some of the type-safe clients might need to update if we're reporting new built-in names. And I don't want this version to be coupled with an SDK upgrade. And I'd rather not deal with some errors in receipts when querying from Starknet RS, for example. Yeah, so that basically covers what's missing from the currently published release notes. Any questions or issues or something we have to worry about for this upcoming version? Okay, that's great. Okay, so maybe a quick round of updates from you guys, and then we can move on to discuss WebSockets. So whoever wants to start, Juno, Pathfinder, Kazer, just go ahead.
I think I can start.
Okay.
Sorry, please go ahead.
No. I just wanted to say that we haven't made much progress since the last meeting. We have fixed a couple of issues with P2P sync and are working on that right now, but no major new updates at the moment.
Okay, so on our side, on Juno's side, we were testing integration of a new blockifier for 0.13.2. There were some bugs, new types were introduced, so we're still fixing it. On P2P front, we started to do Hive tests, as far as I remember, and that's basically all. And I have a question for Pathfinder. How long will it take for you guys to be able to sync from Juno?
Oh, that is a very good question. I actually just wanted to test whether or not that works right now, but I still didn't have time for that. But I look into that and let you know how it goes. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
You mentioned blockifier issues. Can you maybe say a few more words? As far as I know, parallelization shouldn't really affect things. This, of course, doesn't mean nothing breaks. We changed to the new felt type. I assume this is...
Yes, exactly. This is one of the issues.
Okay.
We are also working on integrating the new blockifier, by the way. The felt type seems pretty easy to do, but there were some other API changes as well, which I'm trying to figure out how to use the new API. For example, to get the state diff from a transactional state.
Okay, I don't have enough context to answer out the top of my head, but if it looks
absolutely, good... I will write you on Slack once I know enough to be able to precisely tell you what exactly my problem is.
Okay, sounds good. Kirill, you mentioned Hive tests. What exactly do you mean by that? Like, I know the full-blown Ethereum Hive tests, but not sure exactly what are you planning on your side.
Yeah, Hive test basically allows you to set up some network and do some basic tests. I think for more details, I will pass to Wojciech probably if he's on the call.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's not really Hive test right now because for doing Hive test we need open source sequencer. Yeah, and it's almost the working sequencer, so in the future we could use it to create custom network and simulate all those test environments. Yeah, but for now we just use Kurtozis tool. We have Juno. I mean, not only Juno, but Node, some kind of node packets when we can create n nodes and attach it to the current P2P Sepola network to test some kind of scenarios behaviors. Yeah, so nothing special, but yeah, it's the plan for future development of this. Yeah, so.
Do you plan for it to be like an internal tool, or is your vision that other nodes will?
Yeah. The goal is to make all kinds of nodes to be included in those tests. Yeah, so.
Okay, sounds amazing. So hopefully when we start Kaza or Pathfinder in the mix, then and Papyrus, then we'll start talking about it in more detail.
Yeah, so
yep, that sounds good.
I'd like to point some things out. So Hive is very much the test framework for Ethereum to check the correctness of RPC and so on. I think Antiros and Kasar Labs are hosting a session in Brussels about how they envision the future of this. And I hope from that session we get to the point where we know exactly what we test, what we want to standardize, have in the standard tests, and know like how much resources each team can kind of provide to this effort over the next few months. The stuff that Wojciech is working on is more like P2P testing environments with kurtosis, allows you to set up many different nodes, different scenarios, and see how the network performs. I think it's actually much closer to stuff that Equilibrium Labs does as well. So I'd like Wojciech to host a small session. I might be jumping this on you, Wojciech, but in Brussels as well on like what the design of this could look like, and maybe collaborate with the Equilibrium Labs guys, because I know that you guys also have a tool for testing large networks, if I remember correctly, Christian?
Yes, we do. Although that's a separate team from ours, so we'll need some help with that.
Okay, so I think we should have a discussion there, like what the features are of kurtosis, what the features are of your tool, what makes the most sense for the ecosystem, and how we can collaborate on building this out into a like cross-node effort, right? So if we walk away from Brussels with both concrete plans on how to standardize the RPT testing and like where it lives, like under Starknet.io and stuff, and how to test P2P testing and a roadmap, I'd be super happy already with the sessions. So,
yeah, sounds like a good plan. Okay, great. Anyone else regarding anything, or am I moving to Alex?
Just one point. So we started our boilerplate client for P2P, but we are not that much advanced. But I had this concern. I told you on regarding the communicating the traces, like for how do we secure the traces imports from other clients, from other full nodes, if they are not part of the commitments, or if they cannot be re-executed by the blockifier before version 0.13. Like, how do we sync from scratch in a secured way?
So I think that was what Yorick answered there. I thought you were not talking about P2P, but in P2P we don't have protocol for traces. Like traces are only served on demand. Like you ask for block traces, and the node has to do some re-execution. I think that committing to traces is pretty extreme. It came up very briefly, but it means a lot more hashing going on in the proof, and yeah, that's probably something you want to have to re-execute for. So I don't know where the limit exactly is, but the way I envision it, receipts should be provable. But if you want to start looking into the execution itself, then it's up to you to rerun it.
But do we plan like to be able to re-execute blocks before? I don't know, like for example, if you want to sync from scratch, if I want to block 10,000 deploy account with
so like you said, right now we can't, and
Yeah.
the short answer would be no. Long-term solution, it keeps coming up, but it will happen sometime. Regenesis and dumping the whole data, but it's not a great loss. I mean, it's interesting to see stats of who's asking traces prior to 0.13.1. And once, yeah, I don't think I'm fine with not serving this data. For now, it's not ideal, but going up, the only reason that future blockifiers shouldn't be able to replay is like production bugs that were running and not caught, and we don't want to keep the buggy behavior in the new blockifier. Potentially, we may keep it to avoid the issue, but this is the only reason I'm foreseeing to break replay today. Anything else is something that we need to handle. Like if now on integration we see that the new blockifier for some reason doesn't replay correctly, although internally we're testing it, but more with the parallelization interface to verify that parallel execution doesn't mess up things. But yeah, if you find any discrepancy, let us know.
Yeah.
Anything that is not a very clear bug in the past will be fixed.
Nice. Makes sense.
In general, we should avoid replay to sync, right? I mean, we don't have to do that in Starknet. So
In general, what?
we should avoid replay to sync, like syncing.
No, it's not replay to sync. It's
Yeah.
or at least the way I answered, I imagine replay like by RPC request. I want someone asks.
So the plan is to
Okay.
remove the fallback to the sequencer once in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Won't exist indefinitely, but for now we need it for the past. Okay, cool. So anything else? Okay, if not, then Alex, your floor with the WebSockets.
Ariel. So yeah, for folks who have not met me or I did not have a chance to meet, I'm Alex. I'm also working at Starkware, mostly with the developer tools and SDKs. So coming to this a bit from this angle. So yeah, the point to discuss is WebSockets, or more specifically, subscribing to events that happen on full nodes and adding them as a part of the official spec. So I've shared a doc in the channel. The doc briefly describes what we want to do and the state of things as I understand it right now, which is that both Juno and Pathfinder implement some set of subscription functionality, but slightly differently, both in terms of how you access it, the API, and the return types. So the purpose of this meeting is to kick off the standardization and try to converge, or at least start the discussion on some of these things. It's not something too controversial, I think, but just to hear some opinions. The general schedule for this going forward, the way I see it. So after this meeting and some additional discussions that might take place synchronously, a couple of weeks, I can post more concrete dates, but just for us to have something to go by, couple of weeks to write a spec PR to the Starknet specs. This will then also be reviewed and commented by anyone who wants for a few more weeks, and then this will be added to the roadmap for Starknet 13.3 and RPC 08. Yeah, so this is a few months away, so we have some time to converge on this. Okay, so I'll start off with the points that are slightly different. Present, I guess, some advantages or disadvantages. Want to hear your thoughts on one thing or another, and what we should go for. Maybe before that, any general questions or disagreements or concerns around this? All right. So first point. So on Juno, accessing the streams is done on a separate port than the main RPC port. On a Pathfinder, it is on the same one, but with an addition to the path URL /WS. So advantages to either additional path or the same port, but with another path, which might start to be a bit complicated, and also possible to ask service providers what would be more convenient for them in terms of how they prefer it, and with the Starknet infrastructure they have right now, and for other chains as well. But yeah, wanted to raise this as the first point. If there are any strong opinions to to one or another. I think a different port makes sense, but what do you think?
My 2 cents are whatever will minimize complaints from the large providers, which, if I recall correctly, when we had the multiple URLs for versions, I don't know, it caused some mess for some of them. So I don't know if someone here knows what would minimize this, but yeah.
Yorick, anything on the never mind the provider that would work one way or another, or doesn't really matter?
I don't see a reason why it would matter, but I might not be the right person to ask this question, so I'll forward it on
Okay.
to the team.
Okay, so we'll defer this to later and get some input from providers. Okay, second point. So unless there are okay, cool. Second point on Pathfinder, it is currently like the API for subscriptions is a single function, Pathfinder subscribe or start and subscribe, with an array of various lengths depending on the first element. So just the string new heads for new heads, and the events with additional parameters in the array for events, and filtering on keys. So whether we want to keep the same similarity to Ethereum RPC and have a single function, or break it up to multiple functions, each one with their own set of parameters. Advantages: either similarity to Ethereum, or just, I guess, more readable API in terms of what you expect to get when you're calling one function or another. I don't have a strong opinion here.
Again, my 2 cents are splitting it.
Mhm.
Most notably because of the events query, which can be rather complicated, and I think this is what we did in other places in the RPC. I am more worried, like, how, I don't know, should the method, is it clear that the RPC specs themselves is oblivious to this data being streamed, or do we need some, I don't know, special thinking like in the P2P portals? But the TLDR is, I think it's nicer for SDKs if we separate them. I might be wrong, but that's my intuition.
It is just writing the spec for this array is a bit messy in terms of the parameters that are expected, because it's like an array that has items that depend on the first item, which is a bit, again, messy. So I also think splitting. So yeah, a bit more similar to what Juno is doing. Yeah, unless there are strong opinions against. Okay, cool. So splitting.
Wait, do we have people from Juno who work on WebSockets here? Are we asking questions to the right audience? Nikolai, did we collect all the people responsible for this part to have a meaningful discussion?
We have a sensible representative here, yes.
Okay, cool.
This is okay. This is not, set in stone. Just raising this for context. I'll put a summary of this in the group, and if there are additional reservations, then that we can discuss. There is not a lot of time left, so I'll cover the okay. In terms of endpoints, so the ones that shouldn't be controversial are getting new block headers, getting transaction statuses, getting events. The ones that are perhaps more tricky are, do we want a syncing status? So something to ping the node and know how many blocks are already synced, or is this redundant, or is this not interesting? And the second one is if we want pending transactions, which is interesting for mempool. I think also interesting now, but might be more heavy lifting on the node side to inform of every new transaction in the pending block. That's what I mean. That's what it is right now.
Does Ethereum have sorry. Does Ethereum have this method for know how long for syncing, right? Okay.
In Ethereum, this is for transactions that get into the mempool. For us, it will be this in the future and transactions in the pending block for now. Yes, Christian.
So just wanted to add two things that one thing is that without support for events or transactions in the pending block, I don't think this makes much sense, because eventually you'll get pretty outdated information from events if you only consider data from finalized blocks. So, for example, subscribing to the status of a transaction and then having to wait until it gets into a finalized block doesn't really make much sense, and it's not what APIs are doing now. So APIs are pretty much just polling for the transaction status via normal RPC right now, but they do poll using the pending state.
Yeah, that's a good point.
At least when you're interested in the L2 accepted state or status.
When we move to this decentralization, you won't know the pending block, right? Or you
absolutely. That this is. I'm just talking about what we should do now. What I think we should do now.
It makes sense. Yes.
Once we get to that point, I hope that block times will be significantly lower anyway. So maybe we might just not need a pending block at all. Or so there obviously won't be one. So we'll have to do something about it. Another thing that I think pretty much the same is true for events. So when you are creating an event subscription, you are probably interested in events emitted by transactions which have been added to the pending block. This is what I wanted to say about the pending stuff. That I think all this only makes sense if we can handle data in the pending block as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one more thing is that as far as I know, both Juno and Pathfinder exposes not only the subscribe methods on WebSocket, but pretty much all other JSON RPC methods as well, which have some consequences for, like, you can already query syncing state via normal JSON RPC methods. You can do that via WebSockets as well. It's not a subscription, that's true. And it also has a consequence on where you might want to expose a WebSocket API, because though the subscribe methods are not versioned at the moment and we might not need such a thing in the future. But for normal JSON RPC methods, we definitely do need API or endpoints that provide a specific version of that API. So just like we do for normal JSON RPC.
Right. So this will be part of the full spec once we add it.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because we had, or you had this discussion on whether or not to serve WebSockets in a different port or not. Even if we do WebSockets over a different port, we'll probably need some path suffix for different versions of the API.
Not directly related, but just to clear it up, is a spec supposed to be aware of streaming? Like, do I need something like a fin message like we have in the P2P spec? I think for errors, it's a must, like special different errors for the streaming methods, but I don't know if we care about it for the regular responses. Or it's always a chunk of events and nothing to worry about. Everything else is handled by the WebSocket connection. The RPC is oblivious that you're getting another chunk of events. For example, if I'm focusing on events.
At least that's how it works in Pathfinder. So if you get a stream of events or an error until you close the connection.
Okay.
If you close the connection, your subscription is automatically canceled.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we're indeed running out of time. So anyone who needs to go, that's okay. I would still want to bring up the last thing that I wanted to discuss is should we handle should we have some special care for reorgs, and do we want it from day one, or do we want to have an option to deal with that later? So, for example, on some event that you have already received, expect to receive the same event with some flag that says that it is removed or reorged or something, and possibly receive it again when it is again included in the block.
Is this the only option we have?
No, it's not the only option.
I just wanted to bring up an alternative where
sure, yeah, that's what
you pretty much leave this out of Node and instead do something like we would have a specific error that you get for your subscriptions when a reorg happens. And from that point on, the client would be responsible for dealing with data that it has received that was potentially being reorged away. So this is just I'm just bringing this up because this obviously adds a lot of complications to the nodes. I think the main point here is that when you make a subscription, it has to be so clients have to be aware that the reorg happened. But from that point on, you'll have to do something on your client anyway. So either you are handling these deleted flags for events you have received, or you have some other kind of logic you need. But as long as you have the information that a reorg has happened, I think it should be possible to just update your logic in the client to handle reorgs. But as I mentioned, these deleted flags add a lot of complications on the node side. So it's something that I would advocate for not doing, at least in the first implementation or at the first introduction of these subscriptions.
Okay, I see that a lot of people need to go, so I'll stop here. This makes sense. So indeed, it will require work on the client side anyway. So what we do need to take into consideration is how do we make sure it's easy enough to link this error to things you've previously received. So it will be mappable probably with block hash or something else.
Yeah, something like that. So if the specific error, for example, contains enough details about the reorg, then you should be able to just delete all the reorged away information on the client side, I think.
I think practically, just like the flag would have been ignored, the error will usually be ignored as well. But it does leave the option for someone who does want to write the code and does require much less work. So I am very much for it.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'll write a summary and we can continue the discussion asynchronously as needed.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry for running late.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll extend the next one a bit. We'll see. Thanks, everyone.